Greetings, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we are back here for another edition, another edition, another edition, another edition, another edition, another edition, another. Sorry, I was just changing my mic. We're here for another edition of the Astro Weather, where we are here to bring you the Astro Weather. That's what we're here to do. And I was just on the text with our guy Thor by the door down in Florida, and let me read you his text so that you guys can get some real time reportage. He says, "We're good. I'm prepped for most anything within probability. Looks like the eye is moving south of Tampa and will track over or close to Lake Charles. So, you Lake Charles people, if you're listening, pay attention. The Weather Channel is showing the winds topping in the 80s on Thursday. Now, that's a drastic drop from 150, which is what I was reading about last night. So, I know 80 mile per hour winds are a lot, but they're nothing like 150 mile per hour winds. Now, the amount of water that comes along with it, that's another story. But usually the water factor, in this case with Florida obviously being waves, that would be connected to the wind as well, right? So there would be a correlation between wind speed and water height. So if the wind speed is lower than the water height, they were talking about 15 feet. It's a pretty good sized wave. If you cut that in half, maybe we're looking at about 6 foot, 7 foot waves, which are, that's the height of the water that could actually hit landfall. It's still high, but it's not as high as 15 feet. We should be fine. However, they sure have emotionally charged the people and further dwindled their resources, which is a really good point. Which is, as you know, a strategy of war. It is a strategy of war. So there is a firsthand account of our guy, Thor by the door, Mr. Steve, who is taking care of business. So let's see who's into his house. Do a quick little check in here. There he is, DJMC, Mr. Michael Cisternino. Batting leadoff. Michael, I'm so sorry to hear about your Dodgers. I'm not sure if right now there are two more hated teams between the Dodgers and their bloated payroll and their DEI board of directors, or the San Diego Padres, who look like they're more like the baseball gang in the movie The Warriors versus just a Major League Baseball team. So, yeah, anyway, baseball is alive and well in America, supposedly. Let's see, who else? We have Kabuki Theater. There's Bo. Looking forward to appraisal of the events. It's so dark. Yes, Robert, is that you? No, not Robert. Kabuki Theater. Where are we safe? I bought a gift for the host. It's a baby. It's a baby's arm holding an apple. It's from the Tubes. What do you want from life? Queen Lisa, she's here, and she's in Jacksonville, which is north of the storm front. By the way, you can see here that I've got a different background, and that's because the studio is going to go through some changes shortly. So we're going to have kind of a modular studio, and this background will play a part, but what you'll see behind me will be things. Things will be behind me. And then we'll also have a green screen option as well. Brandy Jerez checking in at 2 a.m. waiting for the Tropicana demo. The end of an era. But it's the beginning of a new one with the Las Vegas A's. Melissa Stanton in the house. There's another Floridian. Hey, Melissa, we're doing well down there. The lovely and talented one is with us. Lady Lou, she's been awake. She's been stressing out. Let's see. Sigurd, hello to all sacred Americans in the Akashic memory of John Travolta's second best wig. That sounds like a prog rock tune. That sounds like a tune by, I don't know, who would that be? Maybe Ozark Tentacles. That would be a good, although they had really weird tracks like Splork. They had these weird, I love Ozark Tentacles, by the way. I think they're very underrated. I don't know why Andy Edwards never talks about Ozark Tentacles. Let's see. Who else? Janice Phillips. Getting out to that barn. Christina Jerzak. Scott's at a conference. Haven't been on the live in a while. Well, here you are. We're glad you're representing the Jerzak clan. Thank you, Christina. The iconic Tropicana is a pile of rubble. All things shall pass. All things shall pass. Glemmis Paint, Barbara Boots. Did I say hi to Bo? Hi, Bo. Hi, Bo. Hi, Bo. Laura E., glad to be here. Went to a sheep and wolf festival this weekend. Now that sounds like just a downright good time. A sheep and wolf festival. I bet you if you're into sheep and wool, it doesn't get much better than that. Tom Jordan's here, nor is she the queen of speed. We met her in 3D. And she is as much of a force in 3D as she is in the virtual world. Sweet Woodruff, Leanne Ott is here. Let's see. Warlanda. I just met a cup of coffee named Warlanda. My man Ryan, the introspective woodworker, in the house. Let's see. Green Hat Crow, Lynette Jardine. Yes, sign up for the 11th house. You get good things. If you'd signed up on my birthday, I gave away 64 courses, astrology courses. It's a $300 value. $300 value. Membership has its privileges. Okay, I should probably get going. Soul Traveler and PB, they get shout outs. Yes, you can buy me a cup of coffee. Speaking of coffee, right there. Thank you, Ryan. Monica Farrow. In a dream, 90s mullet era, David Icke attacked me with a VHS box set. I have metamedia fatigue. David Icke, the most important man in the world, according to David Icke. All right, let's get cracking. Enough of this. Enough of this cheater chatter. Enough of this cheater chatter. Let's get into the weather. The weather. Oh man! All right, I always do this. Give me 1 second. If I could get away with it, there is a group from Manchester named Magazine who are one of my favorite all-time bands. And Magazine sang a song called A Change in the Weather. And if I could get away with playing that on this show as an intro, oh, I most certainly would. It would be a great tribute to magazine. All right. Okay, there we go. Sorry to be a bit tardy here with this, but we're gonna launch it. We're gonna launch it. All right, let me zoom in. Okay, here we go. Here we go. There's our friend Mars, still tromping away in Cancer, 19 degrees. And oh, here we go. There's that sun. And that's at 16 degrees. So we're not quite there yet. Give us 3 days before it goes into exact square mode, and then opposing Chiron. Oh man, tempers are short. Tempers are short. Patience is in short supply. However, the sun will meander. You can't see the chart. Oh, thank you, Tom. That would help, wouldn't it, if I showed you the chart? There you go. There it is. Okay. So, you know, when I look at this, it's kind of an extended play version of last week, where, again, do you want to get into other people's business? You know, I had a moment like this yesterday with this Sun-Mars square. So one of the things that I really hate doing is I hate going to the instant checkout where you just scan your shit. I think it's dehumanizing. I've never liked it. I'm an old school person. Not that I have to have a relationship with the cashier, but I think it's a fundamental part of our human experience. At least I'd like to think. Anyway, so I always opt for the cashier. And usually they have a 15 items or less line or two. I was in Fredericksburg yesterday. And I decided that the HEB makes really good box sushi. I mean, they have actually sushi guys there in HEB. And, you know, they're cutting and rolling and, you know, they're doing that stuff all day and replenishing the supply. And so it's not like you're buying gas station sushi. So I got myself a box of sushi and I decided to, I'm checking out. And I look around and I'm like, oh, okay, let me see the line situation. And there's 15 items or less. Okay, this woman's got fucking 30 items. 30 items. You know, most people would just go and scan it, not think anything about it. And eventually I did because I needed to be somewhere. But I talked to the guys on the floor. I mean, what are you doing here? It's 30. This is 15 items or less. There's like 30 here. Not only that, but I watched this from the other side because I was done with my transaction. Then she had this problem with one of her items. And then it's like, I get on the phone, you know, all that shit, right? And that's how I talked to the guys. He had to come over and fix their snafu. So I'm like, what's going on here? This is 15 items or less. And she's got at least 30 or more. Well, sir, we do have the automated checkout. I'm like, I know you have the automated checkout, but I didn't want to use the automated checkout. It's dehumanizing. And I'm actually trying to honor this guy's job by going through his line. I'm trying to save his job. And you're safe. You just walk around and deal with all the people that are having problems with trans. I didn't say that part. Anyway, pick and choose your spots. Probably wasn't the best spot for me. Not sure he was all that receptive, but that's okay. That's okay. So that's what I'm talking about. We were in short supply of patience. I had another one. I had another thing. I just decided to shut my mouth. This is not worth it. This is, like small stuff. Small stuff. That was kind of a small thing. Although it was, in my mind, it was like a pebble in my shoe. Speaking of shoe, the next thing that happened was I went to a gas station, got some gas, got a bottle of water, and I was wearing my sandals, my black sandals, and they have a carpet, which is really odd now that I think about it. Like it was in a mini mart, and why do they have this carpet just in the middle of an aisle? Like it really serves no, like it. There's no aesthetic value to having that carpet, that piece of carpet. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a carpet mat kind of thing. There's no aesthetic value. Oh, hey, look at this great carpet mat in the mini mart. Wow, it really brings the whole store together. It ties the store together. No, it doesn't tie the store together. They shouldn't even have it. And it was slightly up, right? It was like the edge was slightly up, and I caught my flip flop on it, my sandals, not a flip, flop, sandal. And I kind of like stumbled a bit, and like, wow, if I had fallen, there's a term for that, slip and sue or whatever. Like they could have had some suit act. And then again, I'm like, do I really want to tell this woman that they don't need that fucking piece of carpet there? It serves no purpose. In fact, it's actually dangerous. No, let me just get my water and go. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking. If you're gonna go in, this is it now. This is really it with this Sun Mars square. If you're gonna go in, make sure you're gonna go in at a level that is worthwhile. Like if you're gonna go in, go save someone. This is rescue energy, which, by the way, is probably pretty good for the people who are stranded. Now, of course, in North Carolina, they've got their own issues, right? Now we're talking about Florida, but this is actually quite good in terms of rescue energy against all odds, kind of a thing. And I feel like that the situation in North Carolina is going to get much more tense, much more tense. Apparently, the government is sending. It's not National Guard. The government is dispatching some form of military to go down into North Carolina. And I'm not sure it's to help. It might be more to defend. There's actually a rumor that a FEMA agent had been shot. I'm surprised there hasn't been more of this, to be honest with you. I was watching a news report yesterday, and apparently there's a bunch of guys from Indiana. Of course, they're Hoosiers, and they've gone down there to Florida to help. I mean, North Carolina to help, and they've been there since September 24th. And they've got their ATVs and everything. So Americans are showing up. The great thing about this is that the numbers can overwhelm the non-governmental response or the governmental non-response. So my advice to anybody who is engaged in search and rescue or the delivering of supplies, don't give up. I'll get into more of this on 15 minutes, but clearly this is aimed at the geographical area of Donald Trump's demographic. Asheville isn't, though. Astral's a whole different story. And we'll get into some of that on 15 Minutes of Flame. By the way, I'm going to try to, I tried to set up another link. I don't know if it's going to work on YouTube. I didn't see it. Not this YouTube channel, but I have another YouTube channel. And it has about 3,000 subscribers. I haven't used it in a long time. So I'm trying to do the thing where people go live on YouTube for about 10 minutes and they go over to Rumble. And I set up that link today. I'm not sure if it's going to work. It's a test. So if it doesn't work, I'll figure out how to, go with the connection. Anyway, we'll get more into the disasters over on 15. Okay, so I already talked about bitching about the small stuff here. So Jupiter's trining, the sun is trining Jupiter. And there's more potentiality. There's much more potentiality to find common ground. When people are Democrats or liberals, Republicans or conservatives, when there's a disaster, we're all human. This is the one thing that is the great common denominator, the great leveler. It's funny how quickly politics goes by the wayside. Let's say you're somebody who's been rescued as part of a natural disaster, and the group that's bringing you food and some clean clothes and some blankets or whatever, let's say fundamentally they're a group that you would not align with politically. And I don't know what example that would be, but just think that there would be one. And that person finds out that the group that's giving them the things that they need are a group that they would not normally associate with, and in fact, in some situations, even eviscerate. Isn't that just a mind fucker? What are you going to do? Oh, I can't take this food. I can't take this food. I'm sorry, I can't drink this water. I can't wear these clothes. Well, you're going to starve. Well, if that's the price I pay to remain true to my ideals, I'm not going to take it. Well, give them a couple days. I'm sure their ideology will rapidly be readjusted. This is what happens to people. So I just got a text from my guy in Florida. It says they are predicted Cat 1. More worried about the rainfall and flooding. There you go. It's another Floridian. The last time I downgraded the thing, which I saw based on the position of the moon, I was kind of right. For the people in Florida, it wasn't as bad. And I was really just looking at Florida, and it wasn't my fault that they dropped some kind of weather bomb into this thing and made it much bigger. Again, I'm talking about Helene. So if it's a Cat 1, if it's going to be a Cat 1, that's about what the wind velocity was for North Carolina, but it's the rain. It's the rain and the water dump. And it's setting up to be very similar in that regard. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. So the Sun-Jupiter trine opens up the possibility for common ground. Where do you find your common ground? Where do you find, it's like when my mother was sick and, was leaning very heavily into her church, for some assistance. People that went there and I, I was just not ideologically predisposed to their version of Christianity for a number of reasons. Not that I'm opposed to Christianity, by the way. But watching them take care of her and have that kind, loving spirit, and yet they're doing, weekday workshops on social justice warriors. It's one of those things that really throws the human brain into this weird place of true cognitive dissonance. And so both things can be equally true, which is something that most people have a hard time understanding. However, with Jupiter and Gemini, that possibility becomes much greater, much, much greater with the Sun-Jupiter trine. So we're looking to embrace things that are theoretically fragmented or separated or compartmentalized. It's a very interesting blend of energies. Here things get real personal. And here things kind of get a little more transpersonal. And maybe you have to hit the wall a little bit and then work through it. And then say, oh yeah, there's a bigger picture here. There's a bigger story. There's a bigger narrative. Even Jupiter sextiling Chiron. I think, all right, this is my take just in terms of today with this storm front coming in, that the Jupiter Chiron sextile is really good for, I'll just use it as a kind of a blanket term, miracles. Miracles. And I would not be surprised if you're, more than one story where people have miraculously dodged something or miraculously been assisted by another person, or perhaps even a bit of a supernatural force. And that's due to the fact that Jupiter is in sextile with Chiron in Aries. We still have that grand trine with Venus and Mars. Now, Venus is separated from Saturn a little bit. But today, this Venus-Mars trine is really locked in, and it doesn't get much closer. It got a little closer in the middle of the night. Maybe some of you had middle of the night wake-up sex. You could have taken real, I used to live in this apartment in Austin, and the layouts of the apartments are the same. Like, on the second floor of the first, they're the same. And there was this family that lived below me, and they had like, I don't know, 3 kids maybe in that apartment, plus 2 people, plus a giant dog. And around 2 in the morning, I'd start to hear like the bed squeaking through the floor. And then I'd hear, a little bit more than that. Like, it was almost like a couple times a week at 2 a.m. Oh, here we go. No wonder they have 3 kids. Got a couple of rabbits living downstairs. Anyway, that's the Venus-Mars trine. It's bonding. It's getting along. I think this is really great for things like rescue operations in general, right? Venus is how we relate, and it's in Scorpio, and water signs tend to be empathic. Like, we feel what other people feel through water signs. And with Mars and Cancer, also a water sign, there's action. And usually Mars in Cancer isn't always that actionable. It's more reactionable. But this is one of those periods where if you're going to have a disaster, thank God it's Mars in Cancer and Venus in Scorpio, because people are committed. They're committed to the thing. And you don't have to be in a disastrous situation to be a part of this, right? You find ways to work together, bond together. You find common ground. And emotions are not, they're not ideas. You know, they unite us at a nonverbal level. And Saturn's still in the mix here. And Saturn bonds it. You know, this is a really interesting trine because Saturn is the bondo. It's been the glue, it's been the grout that's held these two forces together, even though they're together anyway. And it almost, to me, again, we'll zoom out. We'll put this in the context of North Carolina, and it's almost like, you know, people, because I really feel like the Mars and Cancer is people. It's the folk, and they're taking the authority into their own hands. Right? This is really what that Mars Saturn trine is about. It's like, okay, we're going to do it. Right? It's not Mars and Capricorn. Mars and Capricorn is the government's going to come do it. Mars and Cancer is different. Speaking of Capricorn, we have the moon at 1 degree. Now, it is squaring because it's coming out of Sag. It is squaring Neptune, but it's in Capricorn. Okay, so we'll play with the weather and the astro weather here. The moon in Capricorn is what? It is more arid and dry. It's an arid and dry moon. Not like the Cancer moon, which is big, soppy, and wet. So the Capricorn moon is more arid and dry, and it's squaring Neptune. Now, this can be a bit problematic. And it's more problematic for areas that don't get water. And I would assume that Florida gets a fairly steady dose of water since it's more tropical. Here's what I'll say about this. If you haven't prepared, if you haven't done your due diligence here, this moon Neptune square, especially during the early morning hours here, could be more problematic. But the moon moves very quickly. So all we need to do is get this moon to about 10, 11 degrees, maybe even 9 degrees. That'll be sometime this evening. And it's out of that square with Neptune. So we're not dealing with the potentiality of a major dump. Because sometimes with the moon Neptune square, you can get a major dump, especially emotional dumps. So let's cross our fingers here, say some prayers for our friends down in the southeast, that the arid Capricorn moon dries this thing out a little bit. All right, so I think let me go back here for a second. I'm going to see if I can get the right time here. Here I go again. Here I go again. Let's see, what are we looking at here? Making predictions. Making predictions. Okay, so we're looking at so that moon, if we really want to get it out of that 10-degree orb, about 9 p.m. tonight, it goes to 8 degrees Capricorn, and it's out of that 10-degree. Now, it will, begin to square the sun. I mean, to me, that represents, at least in the following day, because the moon will square the sun. Now, you don't have to see this right now, but the moon will square the sun earlier tomorrow, which I think dries things out. Again, in a normal world, without black weather tech, this works. This works. Tomorrow we got Jupiter going retrograde. So today it looks like Jupiter is stationary. Let's go back to the chart. Yeah, so today Jupiter is stationary. And tomorrow begins the retrograde period of Jupiter. So this is kind of a peak relating period, or peak period where you can kind of get above the fray, see both sides of the situation, both externally and internally. And tomorrow Jupiter begins its backwards jaunt. So what is the Sabian symbol for Gemini? Looks like it's right on Gemini 20, right around there. Let's check that out. Okay, so Gemini 20. '21, Gemini 21. Oh, a tumultuous labor demonstration. Interesting. Let me show you guys. Let me see if I can get this on my other screen. Very interesting Sabian symbol. Very interesting. Okay, so this is the Sabian symbol for Gemini 21. This is the degree that Jupiter will station at, and then go station at now and will go retrograde at 21. A tumultuous labor demonstration, the revolutionary impact of mental concepts upon the collective emotions and desires of man. Ooh. Woo. This begins the 17th fivefold sequence of symbols and sets the stage for a tumultuous process which may lead to a new approach to the problems resulting from individualization. The repressed or oppressed instincts stage an emotional outburst, claiming their due. Wow. Wow. That is where Jupiter is going to station and go. What does that mean? It means that people are not going to be happy. The thing that these weather disasters are doing is they're shaking the normies out. That's for sure. And the absolutely bald-faced malfeasance of the corporation known as the government of the United States and its infiltrators, we'll use that word, infiltrators, is becoming more and more apparent. We still have a ways to go, but this has been how would I describe it? A cyclonic baptism. A cyclonic baptism into the realm of the dark waters of truth. You know, I saw a picture of Chimney Rock. You guys have seen this, I'm sure. Chimney Rock before and after. It's like a bomb hit it. It's like somebody fucking took a bomb to that town. It looked like a quaint little town, kind of a town you roll up and go, oh, look at this little town. Look at this quaint little town. Let me go on over to this quaint little town. Check it out. Let me sit down and get a cup of coffee or have a beer with the locals. Maybe I'll get a cheeseburger grilled on an open flame grill. And the waitress will call me hun. No more. Anyway, this is the theme for Jupiter until it goes direct, a tumultuous labor demonstration. There you go. All right. We're going to now go into the next part of our show, which is the part where I give a shout out to my guy, Chris. And I'm so glad he was able to be a part of our event this year. He's always there. And you got to meet him. And for people who were able to attend the after party at my place, he was here as well, and you got to meet him. He's just such a great guy. And when you sit down and listen to his story and the things that he's been through and done, you'll understand why he's so good at what he does. Just saying. Just saying. So let's let me see if I can get this up here. Where is it? Okay, I don't know why it didn't take. Oh, I know why. Because I put it in the wrong freaking browser. See, I didn't swear. I saved my profanity for important moments. Here we go. So our True Hemp Science star of the day is Aimee Semple McPherson. And that means that this segment is brought to you by True Hemp Science, where if you type in 15MINS and spend $100 or more, you'll get the goodie bag. And in the goodie bag, they have starlight, they've got moon dust, they've got all kinds of cool little things that go along with your order. Somebody from True Hemp Science is always there to answer your questions. You can make an appointment online if you have any need to, if you have any need, and if you have any desire to get more information on which CBD product is the best for you, then you can just go ahead and do that. $150 or more, and that gets you free shipping. And there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you say, this isn't working for me, send it back. Send it back. That's what great businesses do. They stand by their product. All right. Who is Aimee Semple McPherson? She is a person who is maybe lost a little bit to the tide of history, but her impact and influence is incredibly far-reaching. Incredibly far-reaching. So here's her story. She was born in Canada, Ontario, Ingersoll, Ontario, Canada. And her family moves to the United States. And so she's coming around, she's born sort of at the end of what they call the Second Great Awakening. And the Second Great Awakening is the birth of revivalism. And they find a new doctrine, which is about being reborn. So you can be baptized at your birth, but then you can be baptized again and be reborn. So these revivals were the equivalent of rock and roll shows back in the day. I mean, this is where people were, singing and hooting and hollering and laying on of hands, right? It's a very interesting phenomena in the religious history of America. And of course, it's mostly on the Eastern Seaboard because that's where most of the people are. And that's where Joseph Smith, who starts Mormonism, also grows up. And so Aimee Semple McPherson winds up marrying. She went to a revival tent when she was a kid, or a revival meeting, and it just, grabbed her. It grabbed her. So she winds up marrying this guy named McPherson, last name McPherson. And he is one of those preachers. And what does he do? Or what do they do? Well, they start to do the revival circuit. And it's mostly him, and she's, kind of in the wings and setting up, and, she's definitely part of the scene. And they go to China to do some missionary work. And there's pictures of them in China. You can look all this stuff up. And while she's there, he dies. Okay, let's stop right there. What do we have in the chart? We have the Venus-Neptune opposition, also known as the Widowmaker. Actually, it's Venus-Pluto opposition, and there's Pluto there. She's got them both. She's got the Widowmaker. Now, he dies. There are other marriages that happen that all meet with strange ends in and of themselves. But in this case, he dies. There's another case where Aimee Semple McPherson is thought to have been dead by drowning. I'll talk more about that. It's a very strange story. So she's got, on the record, 3 husbands. The third one, shaky. She comes back from China, and she decides that she has the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and she wants to go out and she wants to preach. And one day she leaves her husband. This is her second husband now. And he's missing her, so he decides that he'll go meet them and go on the road with them. And there's pictures of them with their car and their little sign. She starts this church called the Four Square Church, which is why she has the number 4 on her superhero outfit. And they would go to towns and they would do these revivals, right? But eventually he gets tired of it. He misses his home. He leaves and eventually files for divorce under grounds of desertion. So where does she wind up? She winds up in Los Angeles. Remember, she's in Aries rising. So she is dauntless. The woman's dauntless. She's got Mars in Capricorn in the 10th house. So she's fucking ambitious. She goes to Los Angeles and she starts her own church. Not only does she, her own church was already started, the Four Square Church. She is the visionary behind the first mega church. Aimee Semple McPherson was huge. As a cultural phenomenon, she was huge. This is the days of radio. And she was the first woman to be granted a radio broadcasting license. And she had set up her own radio station inside of her church, which was called the Angelium, or Angle for angel, Angelium. And of course, Angel's part of Los Angeles. And it looks like this round sort of Roman Colosseum, although it has a roof on it, and it's made out of wood. So it has sort of a Tartarian vibe, but it's made out of wood. And it's spackled and it looks, quite interesting. It looks very religious. So what she would do is she would broadcast, here we go, Jupiter in Aquarius in the 10th house. I'm sorry, 11th house. She would broadcast her sermons. She would broadcast her sermons. And she became wildly popular. In fact, I think she might have even been in some movies. She was very into the Hollywood scene. She was close friends with Charlie Chaplin. So she's this, not only does she create the first mega church, not only does she create the first church that is multimedia, meaning she's taking her mass to the masses. She is also incredibly aware of what we would now call social media. She was a first-class promoter. And she would have these very theatrical sermons where she would fight, she would preach, and then she would fight these, this is Hollywood. You got to keep them entertained. And she would fight these creatures who would appear as demons on the stage. So she was incredibly theatrical. And there's this one story where she got a speeding ticket by an LA motorcycle cop. And she actually got a motorcycle. And she dressed up as a biker in her sermon. And starts the motorcycle up, and there's a ramp and everything. She rides it from the pulpit through the audience, right? Turns it around and goes back up onto the stage. And she says, if you don't repent, you're speeding your way to hell. So she was using that experience as a way to broadcast her message of redemption. She's very incredibly theatrical. She's got this, and she was probably I haven't seen her sermons, but she's got a Mercury Neptune trine, Mercury Pluto trine, and it's all going into Jupiter. If she had that sun in Libra hooked up to that Jupiter, this is almost in the same territory as people like Rajneesh, who has that grand trine with Sun, Jupiter, Pluto all in fire. She's close. She's very close. So the other thing, this is, again, I was going to reference this. There's this weird period where she goes missing. She goes for a swim in the Pacific Ocean, and then she's gone for like 4 or 5 weeks. And she shows up in the Sonoran Desert in Mexico and claims to have been abducted by these 2 people. And tortured, and then she somehow her story doesn't really hold up. It's very weird. But they had proclaimed her dead, right? Venus Pluto opposition, Venus Neptune opposition, like drowning. Did she drown? No, she doesn't drown. So the rumor has it that she was involved with this guy named Orthenstein, I believe. Orthenstein. And the rumor has it that she was actually in Carmel, spending 5 weeks with him in a little love shack in Carmel, California. Some people think that they had gone to Mexico in order to see. I think this guy Orthenstein, whatever his name was married. So she went through this major scandal with this whole thing about being missing. and that she was literally having an affair. Now, there were people who were on her side, particularly H.L. Mencken, who's one of the great atheists, but he actually was on her side. And then eventually what happens to her is tragic. She marries this other dude, and apparently there's a chance that he might have been married. Unlucky in love, Uranus in the 7th house of relationship. Squares Jupiter, squares Chiron. Unlucky in love. Saturn, Pluto square, Saturn, Neptune. You know, she's got all this amazing, crazy channeling potential. She's breaking ground. She's doing things that nobody has ever done before. Creates the mega church, becomes theatrical, laying on of hands, speaking in tongues, her own radio station. She is the blueprint for modern Christianity. And in 1945, she winds up in a hotel room in Oakland, California, overdosing on barbiturates. During the scandal where she's, and it's not the scandal about Mexico, it's the scandal about her third husband, this guy who was a singer in her gospel choir, who apparently was married to somebody else that she didn't know. That was very scandalous. So her mission was in ruins. You know what's interesting about her also, before we get out of here? She was like, her church fed a lot of people. You can see this with Moon and Saturn in Virgo in the 6th house. So it's intercepted here. And during the Depression, they fed more people than the government. They actually, when they had a school lunch program in LA, and they had to discontinue it because of the Depression, her church continued the school lunch program. So she did provide a lot of services for people. And that was one of the things that was always kind of offsetting her very eccentric. You know, she's very male looking. She's got that Aries rising, and Mars is in her 10th house. She's very male looking. She's not a dude, though. She had kids. She had 2 kids. Venus in Sagittarius in the 2nd house. Venus-Pluto opposition. This is the house of secret love affairs. She had more than just a few. And apparently one of them was with none other than Milton Berle. Milton Berle. I could just see Milton Berle, who had this absolutely salacious sense of humor. Also, supposedly Milton Berle was quite large, if you know what I mean. I could just see Milton Berle, right, playing the salacious Jewish lover and telling Aimee Semple McPherson to come to Jesus. Right? I could totally see him doing that. I could totally see him doing that. Anyway, very interesting character. South Node, Sagittarius, right? She knows how to teach. She knows how to preach. She's coming in with that from a past life. And that true node in Gemini, it's built for the modern age, 20th century. Hello, radio. There's your True Hemp Science star of the day, Aimee Semple McPherson. All right. We got links in the show notes. Come join us on Boxcast. Come join us on Rumble. We'll be talking about Milton and a bunch of other stuff. So thank you all for being here today. And we'll say just a brief prayer to our brothers and sisters and our 4-legged friends in Florida. May the great force of creation, who created all of this, whether you're trapped in the Gnostic cage and will liberate yourself through the gateway of the pleroma to rejoin the great creator of the universe, where the creator of the universe has a personal and individual relationship with you and everything here. However you may check that box, may those kind and benevolent and miraculous forces be with each and every one of you. And may you all listen to the still small voice in the time of an emergency. Always important. Always important. Stay safe out there. God bless. Bye for now.